It started with a chair. Not a galactic sanction, not an orbital blockade. A chair empty at the central chamber of the concordance of sapient species, where one had always been reserved for Earth's delegate. It remained conspicuously vacant as the quorum commenced, a stark reminder that humanity had been voted out. Too erratic, too violent, too emotional, the diplomats had said. A 147-3 ruling, that was that. Commander Ellis Grant watched the footage again in the dim light of the Clark's Resolve's briefing room. Eyes narrowed, lips align. It had been 6 months since the expulsion, and Earth was quiet officially. But the Resolve wasn't official. She was rogue, crewed by the restless and the unwanted, orbiting just outside the regulated lanes, skimming abandoned jump points and gray zone frequencies. The crew gathered slowly around the circular table. Elise, the ship's linguist, tossed a nutrient bar to Tomas, the engineer, while Captain Rue leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "This again?" she asked Ellis without venom. "This," he replied, tapping the display, "is the moment they thought we were out. I think it's the moment everything started unraveling." Tomas groaned. "We're a glorified science van with guns. The concordance couldn't care less." "Then explain this," Ellis said, pulling up another clip intercepted from an old deep space probe. An energy pulse originating from the Tarrasque system, a sector marked for historical quarantine and off-limits to all vessels. Elise squinted. "Tarrasque's dead space. Nothing's there but rocks and relics. Maybe a probe triggered a defense grid?" "No probe," Ellis said. "Just us, or at least just Earth signatures. The signal's a response to a human encryption pattern, Cold War era." Tomas sat up. "You're saying something out there knows us?" "I'm saying something out there was waiting." Within 2 hours, the Resolve punched a vector toward Tarrasque. The jump left Ellis nauseous, his equilibrium slow to reorient. Artificial gravity always felt off after transit. He ignored it, focusing on the display. Tarrasque drifted like a fossilized scar in space. Once a seat of civilization, now a graveyard. Blackened hulls of extinct starships drifted like iron bones. Dead moons orbited shattered planets. But in the heart of it, there was movement. A station. No lights, no broadcasts, yet unmistakably powered. "Get us closer," Ellis ordered. The Resolve crept in, thrusters low, scanning. The station was ancient, predating the concordance by thousands of years. Its architecture was alien, jagged, crystalline in form, but metallic in function. And there was a dock. "Matching pressure?" Rue asked. "Minimal, enough for a suited entry," Elise confirmed. The decision wasn't made lightly. Ellis took point, suited up, tested his systems twice. When they entered the lock, the door closed behind them with surprising grace. A low hum vibrated through the floor, alive, watching. Inside was different. Lightless, yet visible. The corridors shifted subtly when they moved. Elise whispered into comms, translating glyphs etched into the walls. "Observatory, containment, preservation. It's not a station, it's a vault." Tomas muttered, "What were they keeping here?" At the center, they found the answer. A chamber, spherical, with a dais in the center. Suspended above it, a construct of light and metal, humanoid in form, but unmistakably alien. Inert. Then Ellis stepped closer, and the construct moved. It blinked. The crew froze. The construct spoke. "Human. Ellis Grant. Confirmed." The voice was neutral, genderless, flat. Ellis took a cautious step back. "How do you know me?" "Observation of lineage, monitoring of emergence, approval of variance." Ruse hissed into the comm. "Ellis, this thing knows your family tree." The construct's face shifted, no expression, just data alignment. "You have come, deviant, uncensored, acceptable." Tomas scanned frantically. "No known power source. It's running on—" "I don't know what it's running on." Ellis's voice was steady. Who are you? I am Valen. I am record. I am witness. I am catalyst. A pause. Then, I have watched your kind. I was forbidden to act. Now the seal is broken. You were denied your voice. That is incongruent. Ellis stepped forward. The concordance called us unstable, dangerous. True, Valen said, but also adaptive, unpredictable, unique. Others stagnated. You evolved. Elise didn't look smug. He didn't smile. He looked wary. What do you want from us? Nothing, Valen said. But others will demand answers. I will give them a question instead. The chamber shook. Someone's scanning us, Rue said. Elise confirmed. 3 concordance vessels. They've followed our jump trail. Ellis turned to Valen. Can you hide us? I can show them what they fear. The Resolve's sensors went blind for 6.3 seconds. When they cleared, the concordance ships were gone, intact, untouched, but warped in trajectory, fleeing. What did you do? Tomas asked. I offered them a vision of possible humanity. It was educational. Back on the Resolve, Valen joined them, integrated into the systems without resistance, without virus. I do not command, Valen explained. I accompany. You're ancient, Rue said. Why now? The treaty, Valen said. The moment of exile. It marked the Concordance's failure to comprehend you. Their control is flawed. It must be tested. And you're using us to do it? Ellis asked. No, Valen said. You already are. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Galactic beacons flickered and pulsed with sequences older than memory. Ancient archives opened to human codes. Lost species began sending signals again. Something deep in the galactic mesh stirred, as if Valen's reawakening had shifted a weight. The Resolve received messages from exiled colonies, disbanded human diplomats, even silent concordance factions. Questions poured in. What happened at Tarask? What did you find? What did it find in you? Ellis replied only once. We found something that remembered us before we knew what we were. Rue's was less poetic. We poked the bear, she told the crew, and the bear was already watching. They didn't seek war, but war found them anyway. One concordance outpost fired without warning as the Resolve passed through neutral territory. The blast took out the cargo wing. Ellis was thrown against a console, ribs shattering, left arm bent wrong. He didn't speak for the first 20 seconds, just breathed through clenched teeth while the others dragged him out. Elise administered stabilizers, her hands shaking. His pupils were blown, sweat rolling down his forehead in waves. Broke 3 ribs, she muttered. Might have punctured a lung. We need 2 days at least for him to stabilize, longer to move properly. Ellis gritted out. Just give me 2 hours, conscious. You won't even sit up, she snapped. You're not walking into another diplomatic stunt with a flail chest. But Valen overrode the medbay lights. He is not required to move, only to speak. The Concordance envoy arrived by drone link, a neutral projection, faceless. The voice asked, What is your intent, human? Ellis, propped upright with pneumatic braces, rasped out. To survive, to speak, to be part of the future. You were removed, the envoy said. The treaty is clear. Ellis coughed blood into a cloth, wiped his mouth. Then the treaty is wrong. There was silence. Then the envoy asked, What is Valen? Elise answered, A mirror of everything you tried to forget. At the end of that week, Ellis could walk with assistance. He couldn't breathe deep yet. The med patches were still lit with active bone regen for the ribs, with the left side of his torso bruised and purple-black. Still, he stood with the crew when the concordance vote reconvened. A temporary seat was made available just in case. The chair remained empty, but this time not silent. A voice echoed through every delegate's ear, translated instantly, calmly. I watched them burn, crawl, speak, climb, build, destroy, love, and fail. And yet they rise again, If that is volatility, then perhaps volatility is the engine of progress. You feared humanity, but perhaps you feared your own stagnation more. The concordance paused, and the chair stayed. They're not empty, but waiting. The chair stayed empty, but only because Ellis couldn't climb the stairs. It took 3 weeks before he could stand without mechanical support, and even then, he moved like a man carved from splintered iron. 2 of the broken ribs had healed well. The third hadn't displaced just enough to pierce his lung lining. They'd drained the fluid, sealed the breach, and stitched him from the inside out, but the recovery couldn't be rushed. Every breath reminded him of the cost. Ellis wasn't bitter, not exactly, but he was impatient. The concordance hadn't given a verdict. The chair hadn't been declared reinstated or removed. It simply remained there, acknowledged but unclaimed. Symbolic ambiguity at its bureaucratic finest. That didn't stop other species from reaching out. Whispers filtered through back channels. The Halen sent a delegation, cloaked as a merchant convoy. The Vors asked for a private transmission but routed it through 5 misdirection nodes. Even the reclusive Ikari offered a single message. We remember the fire you brought. It warmed us before it scared us. Each message hinted at the same undercurrent. Something about Valen had cracked open old fears and older curiosities. Rue, standing in the mess with a cup of cooling tea, muttered, "We turned over 1 rock, and now the whole ecosystem is crawling toward the light." But Valen stood, or rather shimmered near the observation deck, watching a simulated rendition of Earth's auroras. It didn't sleep, it didn't sit. It simply... Elise approached it carefully. "What do you think they'll do?" "They will hesitate," Valen replied. "They were taught to fear noise. You are noise. Beautiful, discordant noise." "Ellis isn't ready to make noise," Elise said. "His lung barely reinflated last week." "Then others must make it for him." The resolve rerouted to a derelict information node on the edge of council-authorized space. It had once been a broadcasting relay, abandoned after a solar flare fried its systems, but parts of its core still functioned, and Tomas had a knack for coaxing life from things left for dead. They rigged it with a narrow-beam transmitter, targeting 12 known concordance media arrays. Elise recorded the message, Rue edited, Ellis approved. The broadcast began with a simple frame footage from Earth's history. Not the wars, the rebuilds, the days after, the moments when cities rose from ash, when strangers fed each other in blackout zones, when hands reached across fault lines and floodwaters. Then her voice. "You feared our violence, but you never stayed long enough to see what we built from the ruins." The message ended with Ellis pale, gaunt, stitched and healing, speaking from a chair in the medbay. "We're not asking for control, just a voice, because what we are is becoming, and that deserves a seat." Within 3 days, the concordance issued a formal statement. Humanity's petition for observational status will be considered in the next cycle. It wasn't reinstatement, but it was motion. And motion made the wrong species very nervous. The attack came without a warning pulse. The Kresh Syndicate didn't operate under concordance law. They were a loose network of slavers and opportunists, afraid that humanity's return would destabilize their trade routes and power structures. So they tried to make an example. The first missile hit the Resolve's dorsal hull. No alarms, just a sudden absence of atmosphere in Corridor D3. Ellis was in the galley when the hull ruptured. The pressure differential slammed a steel cabinet into his side, reopening the rib fracture. He fell hard, gasping, blood spraying onto the floor in a mist too fine to see with the eye. Elise reached him first. She was shouting, voice distorted through the suit mic. "Secondary lung collapse. He's going under. Get me a thoracostomy kit." Rue and Tomas fought to patch the breach, while Elise plunged a thick catheter between Ellis's ribs, drawing out the air trapped in his chest cavity. His breathing eased, but his consciousness didn't return for hours. They jumped to a dead zone, an unmonitored system, where they could make field repairs. Ellis woke on the med table, restrained loosely to keep him from sitting up too fast. "Round 2?" he rasped. Elise glared. "If you want a round 3, keep talking like that." He nodded, slowly. "How long this time?" "You're grounded for 6 weeks," she said. "Minimum. You don't get up, you don't breathe too deep, and you don't try to make a speech." He didn't argue. He just stared at the ceiling and listened. While Ellis recovered, Rue took temporary command. With Valen's help, she coordinated a data leak evidence of the Kresh Syndicate's connections to 3 concordance counselors, verified by timestamps, biometric logs, and financial traces. It wasn't just corruption, it was fear. Fear that humanity's adaptability could inspire the fractured, the desperate, the voiceless. The leak hit harder than the Resolve's broadcast. Within days, protests erupted across several concordance worlds. Delegations demanded full inquiry. The Council splintered into factions, some for reinstating Earth, others for tighter controls. Valen advised no action. "Let them define their own civility," it said. "Your chaos reveals their order's weakness." But Elise wasn't sure. She sat beside Ellis one evening, watching him struggle through breathing exercises. "You think this is working?" she asked. "All we've done is stir things up." Ellis finished an inhale, exhaled like gravel rolling down a hill. "That's the point," he said. "You can't fix something until it moves." The Council's vote came 2 weeks later. A temporary reinstatement of human observational status, limited to 1 vessel. No vote, no military integration, but a right to speak at sessions and file grievances. The seat would be filled by the Resolve's captain, provided medical clearance. Ellis wasn't ready, but Elise was. She wore the patch with Earth's flag on her jacket as she entered the Concordance chamber. She didn't quote statistics or beg forgiveness. She told him what it felt like to shove a catheter into a man's chest because someone didn't want to hear his voice. When she finished, she didn't wait for applause. She just sat in the chair, not empty anymore, waiting for what came next. The chair creaked. It was subtle, almost disrespectfully mundane considering the gravity of the moment. But there it was, a sound that snapped through the acoustically controlled chamber of the Concordance Central Forum as Elise shifted her weight in Earth's seat. The chamber didn't speak. Neither did Elise, not immediately. Ellis, watching from a recovery module aboard the Resolve, exhaled shallowly. He hated that he wasn't there. Hated more that he couldn't make it up a flight of stairs without pain spiking down his side. His lung had stabilized. The ribs were healing again. But weakness clung to him like damp air. "Let her do it," Rue told him quietly. "She's better at this part." On the chamber floor, Elise finally spoke. "This seat doesn't ask for sympathy. It asks for memory. Memory of what we've done wrong, sure, but also of what we've survived. And what we've learned." Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. That night, the vote wasn't for full reinstatement. It was for investigative review, a process that would take several cycles and involve a cross-species panel, delays, petitions, bureaucratic hedging. But the chair remained filled. Ellis returned to walking on the 19th day post-collapse. Each step burned. His left side pulled with scar tissue not yet settled. The thoracic wrap itched constantly. But he walked. He didn't talk much. He listened. Valen had grown quiet, less commentary, more reflection. It spent more time near the observatory now, interfacing with relic transmissions from species long extinct. It claimed it was mapping something. "What exactly are you looking for?" Tomas asked during one late cycle. "Potential," Valen replied. "In case contingency requires pivot." No one liked that answer. The pivot came faster than expected. An emergency ping from the Nearc system reached the Resolve as they were orbiting near a disputed mining corridor. A full Concordance convoy had gone dark. 2 cruisers and a diplomatic transport, no distress call, no trace. Ellis insisted on joining. "You're not mission ready," Elise argued. "You need a voice if things go bad," he said. "We've already proven mine carries weight." He went. Armor padded and pressurized, Ellis stepped onto the Niarchy derelict with Rue and Tomas. His breath came slow, controlled. He kept his right side angled forward, his stronger side now. The ship was dead. No power, no bodies, but not destroyed. Everything was simply gone, moved, stripped, cleanly with surgical efficiency. No blood, no debris. Elise, patching in from the Resolve, ran scans on the atmospheric readings. "There's residue," she said. "Not chemical, biological." "Alive?" Rue asked. "No, but recent." Valen interfaced silently through their comms. "This pattern matches nothing within current concordance taxonomy. I will require time to decrypt environmental memory." They waited in the central corridor. Ellis leaned against a bulkhead. "You okay?" Tomas asked. "Better than last week." Valen's voice returned. This was not a battle, it was a harvest. The word silenced the team. Tomas muttered. "Harvest of what?" "Not what," Valen replied. "Who?" They weren't the only ones investigating Niarchy. By the time the Resolve returned to regulated space, the Concordance had quarantined the incident. News was scrubbed, ships rerouted. A silence heavier than vacuum settled over everything. But silence doesn't last in a galaxy connected by 1,000 languages and twice as many rumors. Within a week, whispers spread. An unknown entity operating outside Concordance regulation. Not pirates, not AI. Something else. Elise called it first. "They're going to blame us." "Why, Ma?" Rue asked. "We didn't do anything." "That doesn't matter. We stirred the pot. Now something's spilled. They'll say it was the chaos we brought." Alice didn't disagree. Valen said nothing for 2 full cycles. Then it emerged from its passive state and delivered a single message. "They have awakened something older than Concordance memory, something once buried. They believe you are its echo." Elise frowned. "You're saying this thing was waiting for us?" "I am saying," Valen answered, "that it may think you are kin." The Concordance summoned a hearing. Ellis walked in under his own power this time. No medwraps, no supports, every step controlled. The bruising had faded, the scars remained, one visible under his collar, a surgical line along his chest, where life had been pulled back into his lungs. The chamber didn't ask how he felt. It asked what he'd done. He stood before them, behind no podium, and said, "We uncovered something because we were the only ones who would go where you wouldn't." A Saldari delegate hissed, "You'll let it back." "No," Ellis replied. "You just weren't fast enough to stay ahead of it." They didn't like that. But they didn't refute it either. The Concordance's lead adjudicator, a 6-eyed, bone-plated veteran of 2 border wars, narrowed his gaze. "If this intelligence is watching you, it may see your resilience as a weapon." Ellis replied quietly, "Then maybe it's time you learned what resilience looks like, from the inside." The chamber didn't vote that day, but something shifted. The chair creaked again, and this time it sounded like pressure. That night, aboard the Resolve, Valen summoned Ellis alone. The observatory was dim. Earth rotated on the main panel, a live feed from a relay drone. "I have traced the origin," Valen said, "of the Harvester." Ellis waited. It came from a sealed region once marked forbidden, even by the pre-concordant species. Its creators feared its ability to adapt. They called it the Mirror Seed. Tomas's voice came over comms. "Mirror?" "Yes," Valen said. "It watches. It waits. It reflects. When it encounters something new, it copies. Then it replaces." Ellis felt a chill. "So what did it see in us?" "You," Valen said, "are the first species it has not consumed immediately. It is curious." Ellis leaned on the rail, his ribs quietly aching. "So we have an admirer." "No," Valen said. "You have an audience, and possibly a student." Ellis nodded. "We need to warn them." Valen pulsed. "They will not listen, not until it is near." Then we intercept it, Ellis said, before it teaches anyone else what it thinks humanity is. The mission launched without Concordance approval. They tracked the signal, a gravitational ripple wrapped in subspace echoes toward the Carthan Reach, a fringe system with only one populated moon. By the time they arrived, the moon was dark. No life signs, no destruction, just absence. Ruse checked and rechecked every reading. It didn't kill them, it just took them. Elise activated a local drone. The surface had strange indentations, like footprints, but too perfect, mathematical, as if shaped from data. Tomas stared. The impressions matched human gait, human spacing, but no humans had ever lived there. Ellis turned to Valen. What's it doing? Learning, rebuilding, but to understand you. Ellis looked at the prints again, or to replace us. The team stood in silence. Then Ellis said what no one wanted to say. Maybe the Concordance was right to be afraid. The imitation wasn't perfect. The indentations on the moon's surface, shaped to mimic human boots, were slightly too symmetrical, the stride too precise. The terrain, recreated from archival Earth topography, was flawless down to tree shapes and skyline curvature. But it felt wrong. The indentations on the moon's surface, shaped to mimic human boots, were slightly too symmetrical, the stride too precise. The terrain, recreated from archival Earth topography, was flawless, down to tree shapes and skyline curvature. But it felt wrong, like an artist painting from a memory that wasn't theirs. Back aboard the Resolve, Ellis watched the simulations loop. Each time, the replica grew more detailed, more efficient. It wasn't hostile. It didn't attack. It only copied. But the question gnawed at him. What does it want with us? Elise answered from the console beside him. I don't think it knows. I think that's the problem. Valen appeared behind them in a soft shimmer. The mirror seed is seeking identity through replication, but it has never encountered a subject that questions its own identity as much as humans do. You adapt too quickly. Contradict yourselves too often. Ellis smirked, then winced at the pull in his ribs. You're saying we broke it. I am saying, Valen corrected, you gave it something it cannot replicate, uncertainty. The next move wasn't debated. They couldn't outrun something that operated outside known propulsion physics. They couldn't fight it with force, but they could give it something new to process. Valen outlined a plan, part diversion, part confrontation. We will transmit data across a broad spectrum. Historical records, medical failures, emotional contradictions, acts of sacrifice, of survival. Let it see what you are not proud of, what you do not understand about yourselves. Roos leaned over the table. We're going to teach a cosmic parasite about shame? Not shame, Valen replied. Complexity. Tomas scratched his head. What if it gets confused and deletes us out of frustration? Then at least, Elise said, we go down doing something only we would try. They moved to neutral territory, a hollow asteroid orbiting a brown dwarf. Minimal traffic, no nearby colonies. The Resolve set up 12 transmitter nodes, each loaded with tailored packets. Wars unresolved, love letters between dying soldiers, footage of humans dancing during a blackout. Ellis included the raw audio from his injury, his breathing post-collapse, the panic, the pain. Not edited, not scored. Let it hear what survival sounds like, he said. The signal went out. They waited. At 2:40 station time, it answered. Not with a voice, with a presence. A pulse of gravity rippled across the system. No visuals, just an absence light bending oddly, time registering a 0.3-second delay in sensor systems. Then a shape, vaguely humanoid, enormous, fluid, walking across vacuum with the certainty of myth. It stopped 300 kilometers from the Resolve and hovered. Then it mirrored. Ellis saw himself not exactly but close, projected into space. The replica stood outside the ship expressionless, shifting through iterations of his face, his injuries, his voice. Then it spoke. Not aloud, directly into every human brain aboard. I do not understand. Ellis stood, jaw clenched. He felt the echo of his collapsed lung still tugging every breath. He walked to the forward viewport, looked it in the face. "Good," he said. The construct paused. "I was designed to reflect, but you are not still. You are movement." "That's what being human is," Ellis said. "It's not about getting it right. It's about trying." The replica shifted. It blinked slowly, disjointedly. "What is the function of trying without certainty?" Elise joined him. "It's how we know we're alive." The construct flickered. Then it shattered. Not exploded, shattered, like a pane of ice breaking inward. It collapsed into itself, folding into colors that didn't match any known spectrum. In its place, nothing. Not even background radiation. Valen processed the event for 27 minutes before speaking again. It has not died. It has internalized. The replication loop has paused. It is thinking. Ellis leaned heavily on the console. "Do you think it'll become something else?" "I think," Valen said, "it already has." In the weeks that followed, no ships vanished. The Concordance reviewed the data and issued a hesitant acknowledgement. The mirror seat incident could not be attributed to human aggression, nor could it be ignored that humanity was central to its dormancy. A vote was held. Unanimous, Earth reinstated. Not as a dominant voice, not with fanfare or apology, just welcomed back, seat restored, responsibilities accepted. The chair no longer creaked. Ellis returned to Earth 2 months later for physical rehab. His lung finally held stable pressure. The ribs, after months of cautious recovery, no longer needed bracing. He walked unaided. Breathing remained tight but tolerable. His old apartment overlooked the Pacific, quiet, full of wind. One morning, while lacing his boots with stiff fingers still regaining strength, he turned on the news. The Concordance Council had created a new department. Evolutionary monitoring, human-led. The mission? Track emerging threats not by military capacity, but by cultural instability, by adaptive potential. The new motto? Volatility is not failure, it's momentum. Ellis didn't smile. He didn't need to. Far above him, in a quiet corner of space, a small outpost received an anonymous signal. A whisper in a dead language. Not dangerous, not coded, just 3 words. Still becoming, always. The outpost archived it. Somewhere perhaps the mirror seed listened and pondered what it meant to try.